If you want more of the conventional wisdom on sales and growing revenue, this podcast isn't for you. Throw away your closing tactics, tricks, and tips and learn what the top 1% income earners do to create results. This is the On Purpose Growth Podcast.
All right, everybody, welcome to another On Purpose Growth podcast. My name is Brian McDonald, partner with On Purpose Growth. And today I've got Geoff Hughes on here, an entrepreneur. We've got a really interesting topic to talk about in regards to the number one thing that you can focus on for success. And, you know, the podcast is called On Purpose Growth Podcast. And we're going to learn how to grow on purpose today. So I'm excited to have you on, Geoff. Thanks for taking the time. And why don't you give everybody a little bit of background about who you are and what you're up to.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Well, I've been an online entrepreneur for the last 8 years, and struggled to find satisfaction behind my success. Give a little backstory. I grew up with a single mom who was on social assistance or welfare, as you would call it, for a majority of my childhood. I grew up with a dad that wanted nothing to do with me. And a mother that didn't have the skills to take care of herself, let alone take care of a child. And I always had a drive. I mean, I don't know why I ended up with such a drive, but well, I do now. But back then I didn't. I didn't grow up around athletics or anything, but I became a really good athletic. I was sports, track, basketball, football, baseball. I became an addict, playing sports all the time. School was never my thing. I was definitely, you know, they put a title on me, ADHD or whatever you want to call it. But I struggled, but I always excelled in sports. And wasn't later in life when I figured out my own program was I'm not good enough because my mom told me that I wasn't good enough. And I assumed that as my own identity that I wasn't good enough. So I had to prove everybody wrong. Don't tell me I can't do something. I'll show you. So I struggled. I ended up in a relationship at the age of 21. I took on a child. He was about 4 months old and assumed a dad role and had 2 more kids along the way. And reality was I was pure chaos. I was chaos in my personal life. I was chaos in work, but I was one of those employees that was really hard to get rid of because I excelled so much in making them money. But pardon my French, I was a dick as well, because no amount of anything that you could ever tell me, I would do. I would not take any guidance. So I excelled, and my whole drive was money at the time. I was 24. I was actually, you know, you considered me the Al Bundy. I was a shoe salesman at 23. I excelled. They actually demoted me and then moved me to as a manager position right away. And then I kind of became a cleanup guy. I excelled in the businesses and on the financial, but for the businesses, but I really lacked communication skills, and employees I didn't really communicate with as well at all. And my district managers, they had a love-hate for me. They loved the numbers I pulled up, but they hated dealing with me. Mm-hmm. And I don't blame them. And I was always trying to show them that I was good enough. So I would always excel. But here's the thing. I didn't see myself as being successful. So what would I do? I would create as much chaos as possible to prove that point.
Wow.
And I'll talk a little bit more. I'll go into a lot more context of my journey and what these actually mean. But I ended up traveling throughout all of this, shoe store, you know, fired, new job, always excelling. And how you show up one way, you show up every way. So you can imagine what my relationship was like. It was a nightmare. And I started going through, I guess you would call, peak emotional experiences. By the time I was in my early 30s, I went to my first personal development, as you want to call it, because I was struggling in my relationship. So I was looking for a blue pill. Where's this blue pill that can fix it? Oh, personal development is what I got to do. Okay, perfect. Let me go to this. So I went to it, and it was called Landmark Forms. And I remember signing the waiver form, and it said, if you have any mental problems at all, don't go to this because you could go crazy. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I ended up going to this, and I might suggest that I was awakened a little bit to something that I didn't know. There was new information. Oh, there's perspective. Oh, I can see things from other people's point of view, not just mine. And you mean the world doesn't revolve around Geoff Hughes?
Yeah, right.
Wow, what the hell? So, and it was great. I mean, at the end of the 3 days, I was high on life, and I was going to make all these great, wonderful changes, and it was so awesome. And then like a week later, right back to where I am. So sure, it was great. My relationship cleaned up a little bit, but it wasn't, it didn't last for very long. And I ended up in the same thing. So I'd moved my way up in jobs, gone everywhere from selling shoes to becoming a cellular phone sales guy to a manager with them. I made more money than I ever did as a cellular phone manager. 1 year I made $80,000. And for me, that was a lot of money, because when I first started, I was raising a family on $24,000 a year, and my wife didn't work at the time. So
wow.
We were eating a whole lot of, I remember you'd go to the poultry or the section that had the 30% off coupons and Itchy Band noodles, whatever you could do, craft dinner stocked up, and whatever you could do to eat, because that's what I knew I could do. I mean, I grew up in that anyway, so I understood that. And I ended up in shoe sale, or I ended up in selling cars. I ended up selling robots to the DEA and CIA. I mean, I've been through so many jobs. I mean, get this, I knew nothing about robots, but somehow I got myself into a job where I was driving around in a white van down to the United States, meeting them at the border to meet a bunch of CIA and DEA and Border Patrol people. This robot that crawls under the ground, they call them crawlers. They were basically using them to go underneath in tunnels to catch people smuggling drugs and people and everything underground. But they didn't want to send people underneath there, because if they had guns, right, they'd start shooting them. So if they have a crawler, it's got video footage, so they could actually see what was in the tunnel and lights, so that they could obviously flush them out without actually getting shot, right? So anyways, that was interesting. I did that for about a year, and then 2008 happened. I went bankrupt. I lost everything. I quit my job, and I was right back to square one. This was my life. I mean, it was up and down and bankrupt. I'm back in, then I'm back at cellular phones, and I'm back over at selling Toyota cars. And then all of a sudden there was an ad in the paper for selling media. And it was the competitor to the Yellow Pages in Canada. They were called Cam Pages. So once again, I went out, I took the job, and I was a rock star and a nightmare. My manager loved the numbers that I did, but I was a nightmare, and I made more money than I ever made. I made $150,000 in 1 year.
Wow.
And for me, that was a lot of money. I mean, my example of success was not a strong model. So I ended up with that, and I was just burning through money, living. I remember I bought my first BMW. I was like, woohoo, I got this, and paying high interest because I'd gone bankrupt years before, and traveling all over the place, drinking a whole lot, smoking cigarettes. I mean, partying, not really showing up with my family at all, making loads of, for me at the time would be considered loads of money. And, once again, never fulfilled. Nightmare with my bosses. I wanted more. Anyways, I quit that. Partly because Yellow Pages were planning on buying them out, and I knew the writing was on the wall. So I left selling. And not only that, but I never used a phone book in the Yellow Pages ever. But they started doing directories online, and I became like the top guy selling media online. So I was like, oh, this is cool. And this is back when Groupon just started. So I was like, oh, Groupon, that's cool. I'm going to start my own daily deals company. So I found an angel investor, and I decided to build. It's still around to this day. I started the daily deals company, and I quickly found out that it is not what it's. I had no systems in place. I knew nothing. I thought just because I could just go in and sell anything to anybody that it was going to be successful. Margins, I didn't know about that. I didn't know anything about KPIs. I knew nothing. I knew systems, process. I didn't know any of that. I just knew, I can find somebody to make a contract and I'll fill it out.
Just show up and make money.
Yeah. Yeah. I showed up and made no money. I actually lost $60,000.
Wow.
And needless to say, but prior years to that, there was a guy that I knew. He was working for Freedom 55. We'll call him Joe. That's not his real name. And he used to come into the cell phone store all the time, and we'd sell him stuff. And he was kind of like the Rico Suave guy. And I didn't really have a tight relationship with him, but all of a sudden one day someone goes to me, "Hey, have you seen Joe?" I was like, "No." He says, "You should go look at him on Facebook." So I went on Facebook, and Joe was in these exotic cars and in all these like traveling around the world in penthouses. And I'm like, what the hell? I mean, this guy was just started with Freedom 55 and a young kid trying to like create like an insurance portfolio. And I don't know if anyone knows how hard that is. Prospecting to build like an insurance portfolio is that is hardware. And you are not in the midst of like a year or two all of a sudden going to show up and be driving in Lambos unless you land some of the biggest clients ever. Anyways, so obviously I became very jealous. I was like, what the hell, what's this guy doing? And I made a story in my head that he was probably robbing and stealing from people to make myself feel good because I didn't like the thought of that he was doing something better than me. It wasn't until years later, I was about 34. I decided I'd pay a call to him and find out what exactly they were doing. Because there was rumors that he was running around sending out emails, hidden in little coffee shops and making money in the black market. And you know what I mean? And it had nothing to do with that. It actually had to do with they were sending out emails to lists with affiliate links. So it was called affiliate marketing through email. So email marketing with affiliate links, and they were making loads of dough. I actually got to see firsthand the kind of money that they were making. So I was like, okay, well, that's great. I'm like, so how do I get involved with that? And they're like, well, guess what? It's a pay to play. And the number was very, very high. And I was like, whoa. So I went back to my angel investor and said, okay, well, this didn't work out very well with this, but we can make all this money. Do you want to invest in me again? And he did.
Wow.
And a lot more money, like a lot more. So there I was. I decided, got him in, and we did it. And my first year, we made $1.4 million.
Oh my gosh. Oh, wow.
More money than I had ever made before. And that was my first taste of listen to people who have the results you're looking for. And everybody that says that, mentors don't pay off. Well, if they have the results that you're looking for and they ask for a bunch of money, I'm going to tell you right now, your learning curve exponentially grows.
Oh yeah.
Exponentially grows. So there I was making money, and peak emotional experience number 2 happens. And this time it means the end of my marriage. So there I was, I moved to Kelowna, and I came back from Germany, and I said, we can't be together anymore. And this was after 15 years. It was like my first love. I had 3 kids with her. And I remember like just being decimated, even though I ended it. It's really hard because you're attached after 15 years. And I remember I went away to a retreat, and it was a week long to kind of figure out who I was. I needed another blue pill.
Oh, no.
Give me another blue pill. This time it's a week though.
Wow. Did it work?
So a week and group therapy and stuff like that. And I started understanding a little bit, and I got back, and I decided to read my first book, and it was called Why Am I Afraid to Tell You Who I Really Am? It was a small book, and it was by Dr. John Powell. And it's not very easy to get, actually. You have to like order it, and it's like from the UK, and it takes a couple weeks, but super impactful because it tells you why you are who you are, why you're an adult or a child, and how we essentially act like a child for almost all of our lives. And I'll put a whole bunch of context behind that. So anyways, fine. I figured some stuff out. I changed a bit, but I still didn't fully have the context behind it. I thought I had another blue pill, and I changed perspectives, and I had changed a lot, but I was still partying. I was still drinking. I was still making money, and I wasn't fulfilled because I was still always going after the money. So push back to about 2 years ago, I ended up in the hospital. I woke up on Boxing Day. If people don't know what that is, it's the day after Christmas in Canada.
Yeah.
And I woke up and I was like, well, this is weird. I was double vision. I couldn't see properly. Everything was double vision. So I thought I was just groggy. So I went into the bathroom and there I was. And I was like, well, this isn't going away. This is weird. So I just sat in the room. And if anybody knows me, I don't like going to the doctors at all. I hate it more than anything. So I go to my fiance and I'm like, I think I got a problem here. My eye, I'm seeing double vision. So I need to go to the doctor. So went to the doctor, went in there. I've seen a neurologist. They're like, oh yeah, whatever, come up with whatever. And they're like, yeah, just go home or whatever. And then I literally went to my own doctor the next day and he prescribed me a nasal decongestant.
What?
Yes. A nasal decongestant. I'm not even kidding. My fiance was with me and she's like, what? So there I am, I'm like spraying this stuff. I'm like, this isn't working. Yeah, it's pretty funny.
That's ridiculous.
So there I was, nothing's working. Now headaches are like kicking in, like major, massive headaches, like migraines, like couldn't, and now my equilibrium started to go. So we rushed down to the neurologist again. And he did some stuff and he's like, all right, there's definitely something wrong here. Let's send you, or no, I went to the eye doctor, the eye specialist, and the eye specialist sent me to the neurologist. So I went to the neurologist and 2 spinal taps.
Wow.
Actually 3 spinal taps.
Oh my God.
They didn't know, well, the first one screwed up and then another one. And then I wasn't in the proper angle. And the 2 of the spinal taps, they put that thing in there with no anesthesia. So I was on my, So the third one, they actually froze it. Anyway, and then I went to another neurologist and this other neurologist says, okay, well, I think I know what it is, but we're going to put you in the hospital. And it was on my 40th birthday.
Oh, wow.
So I was put on my 40th birthday in the hospital and then put up a whole about 8 bags of blood, weirdest blood too. It was like clear. So anyways, turns out they suspected that I had a autoimmune disease that was attacking my eye nerves. And,
oh my gosh.
And it was actually Miller-Fisher syndrome. Anyways,
what's that?
It's exactly that. It's an autoimmune deficiency that literally your body attacks your eyes.
Oh my God.
So that's why I was sleeping 20 hours a day. I couldn't, migraines, I had lights off. I couldn't walk. If I wore a pirate patch, I could see properly out of one eye.
Oh
yeah. So I literally had a pirate patch. And anyways, needless to say, they gave me all these drips and they sent me on my way. And after 3 months, I was back to normal. And the test came back positive that I had Miller-Fisher syndrome. So thank goodness that all. But in the meantime, I had 3 businesses at the time, and I was like I was go 24/7, work, sales, everything, training, and I crashed. That was it. This was peak emotional number 3. Mm-hmm. That was it. This was the final hurrah, and I pretty much shut everything down. I stopped doing everything. I quit everything. And I needed to figure out what was wrong because there was definitely something wrong. I mean, I was taking all these blue pills and thought I found what it is that I was looking for, and it wasn't there. So I'd done enough reading, but I still didn't have context. And that's when I finally figured out what it is that was stopping me. And it was my own self-identity. And this will correlate to everybody because this is how we operate. So I'd been to enough. I mean, I'd spent tens of thousands of dollars in between going to mentors, going to different personal development. I mean, everything. And they all got me hyped up, but it never really gave me any context behind it. I get super juiced for a week, 2 weeks, but I just didn't have it. And no one talks about this. And so I decided to start diving into the brain. I was reading books about brain and psychology and identity and all this stuff. And then all of a sudden the lights all started coming on. Now, all the content that I've been reading, right? You know, we all hear about the fairy tale, you know, whatever a man can conceive and believe, he can achieve, rah, 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 go. And I was like, and now I had context. Now I was getting it. Now, I mean, most people would never take a vehicle to a mechanic and ask them to fix your engine problems. And then the mechanic look at you and go, oh, I don't know how the engine works though. You would never leave it with them.
Yeah, right. No way. You'd run away.
Yeah, you'd be like, sorry, this isn't going to work for me. And if you did do that, you might end up with a seized engine because he's going to plug away and try and figure out what the problem is, right? Well, that was me. I was the mechanic that didn't understand how it worked, and I was sitting there plugging it, and it kept leaking. Oh. And eventually, my breakdown, it seized. It was like, listen, dipshit, you don't know what you're doing. So I started doing more homework, and then all of a sudden the lights came on. Now I understood. Most people don't know this, but between the ages of 0 and 7, all of your beliefs are already instilled in you. 80% of your 80% of your beliefs have been instilled in you. You, between the ages of 0 and 4, are actually 50%. So by the time you're 4 years old, 50% of all your beliefs are already in place. And the reason this is required is because you're required to have an identity to survive. If you had no identity, imagine your survival rate, right? So we have these primordial functions that are required to it. It's like when a deer comes out, you know, it's funny how they can all of a sudden walk.
Yeah, right.
The they just know. Do is walk. This is primordial. Like, this is what it needs to do. Mm-hmm. It's instinctual. So I was like, okay, well, oh, I see what's going on here. I remember my childhood now.
Oh.
So I see myself as not being good enough. And my model of success is my mom. Because here's the thing. When you come out from your mother, it's not like you choose your identity.
Right.
And quite honestly, your identity isn't optional. Like, you don't have a choice. The identity that you are right now, until you become aware of it, is not even yours at all. It's actually an identity that you assumed from somebody else based on the people, places, and the world around you.
You're a white canvas.
Yes.
And they paint it.
Correct. They paint it. And here's the thing. You don't even have cognitive reasoning till you're 8. It's not even developed in your brain. So here's the thing. Everything is fact. Every single thing is fact. 100%. So I'm like, holy shit. So I'm making it, and here's the other thing: between the ages of 8 and 18, the other 15% is model. So by the time you're 8 years old, 80% of all your beliefs, and beliefs drives behavior. Everything that you see around the world has been already instilled in you. And by the time you're 18, 95% there. That only leaves 5% left over.
It's your life has been imposed on you.
Yes,
your identity.
It's been given. Yes, your identity, and most people don't even know that. It's not, you don't get to choose. But here's the thing. The coolest thing, we've been programmed. I mean, I just did a video on it, and it's like a phone, right? The phone has a program inside of it, and it'll show you everything that works, right? But it's all based on the inside. You have to type what's there, and it comes up on the screen, but it's all being processed from the inside. Well, we ourselves have been programmed as well, and it all comes from the inside. So our behaviors externally are coming from internal. And a really good book that I actually got this from was called Psycho-Cybernetics, and it was written by Maxwell Maltz. Maxwell Maltz was an actual plastic surgeon, and he was dumbfounded why this large portion of his people that he was fixing and making them look exactly the way that they said that they wanted to look actually were coming back and saying, I don't look like that. And if you think about that, it's like going to a bulimic person. You know that they're like 78 pounds or 90 pounds, and you know they're skinny, but I can tell you right now, they don't think they're skinny. They think they're fat.
Yeah, really fat.
Yes. And here's the thing. Those people that thought that fixing the external was going to make them beauty internally, it didn't. It didn't matter how much they fixed themselves internally, they seen themselves as being ugly. Mm-hmm. Guess what? Because the processors inside the program was telling them it's not. So people look for validation through things and money and they're never fulfilled by it because their self-identity is not fulfilled. So I realized that, okay, so I have a program here. And by the way, just so everyone knows, once you understand the program, the neuroscientific terminology is called metacognitive. Metacognitive means you are now aware of the program. And so the program no longer has control because you can change the trajectory, right? You now can literally change the trajectory of the program. But here's the thing. Most people don't understand. So in order for us to survive, I mean, imagine driving a car, right? If you're driving a car, imagine if you had to think about putting your foot on the gas, putting it on the brake, turning the clicker on, all that stuff. Your subconscious is literally telling you what to do without you having to do it. If you had to consciously do that, oh my God, there would be so many crashes. You can't think at the same speed. So your subconscious mind, which is a program, I mean, how many times has people gone out? I mean, I'll give you an example. I know that I've driven out a certain way every single day and I always turn left. And if I'm not thinking properly at that exact moment about where I'm going, guess what? I turn left, even though I wanted to go right, because it's programmed. It's called repetition. There's only two ways to train your brain. Well, there's three, but the third one, it still requires the one. So there's hypnosis, so you can hypnotize, but it only removes certain strains of the thoughts. There is repetition, and then the other one is peak emotional experiences, right? I mean, how many times have we seen a peak emotional experience make a vast change in somebody's lives, right? It does happen. Right. And
maybe extrapolate there a little bit on the peak emotional experience.
Well, something traumatic, or somebody dies, or something literally changes it so much so that you just like notice it, that your belief, you're like, oh my God, I have to make a change.
Yeah. Got it.
This is, there is no ifs, ands, or buts, but here's the thing. You still require the repetition. So your subconscious mind is trained through repetition, doing something over and over and over and over and over again. And when we're a young child between 0 and 7, between 0 and 4, there's been studies as of recent that say that we're operating at a genius level, right? We are on what they call theta vibrational level. We are consuming information as fast as possible because instinctually we require it to survive, right? It's kind of like the deer getting up. It requires to walk because otherwise there's going to be predators. We require it as well. So we're operating. If you ever notice how fast kids learn?
Oh, yeah.
At an exponential rate. I mean, it's crazy. They don't have the problems, hey, what do you want? They tell you what you want. They don't go, oh, well, I can't have that because of this. No, they're like, I want this, Mom, Dad. And there's no reasoning. You try and reason with a 5-year-old. There's no chance. They want it no matter what.
And they keep asking and asking and asking and asking.
Yeah, exactly. And the only way you can actually kind of play around with it is to create a pattern interruption and give them something else to focus on. So it's something that I do on a regular basis. Something else to focus on, right?
I love it.
You're insane at that point. They literally, their brain does not have any reasoning. It's not even developed. So arguing with a kid that's under 8 years old is the most ridiculous thing in the world. I mean, it's like yelling at a kid that's speaking Spanish when you want him to speak English.
Yeah, right?
It's insane.
You're the one with the problem, not them.
Yeah, exactly. But most people aren't cognitive of it. I mean, how many people are aware that this is actually what's going on? How many people are aware how the brain works? Nobody. I'm talking like 0.001 of a fraction of percentage of the world even understands this stuff. But here's the thing. When you understand it, you're like, now you have a belief behind why you are the way you are. Now I took all that content and I was like, geez, so I need to be able to change the way that I think, but the only way that I can change how I think is by doing something repetitive and being aware of my thoughts as they're coming. So if anyone's ever watched Bruce Lipton, he talks about the movie The Matrix, and he talks about how it's not an actual movie, it's a documentary. It is a documentary. Yeah. If you actually watch it, I'll put all the context you want into it, right? So Keanu Reeves in the movie goes underneath, they put him under, and all of a sudden he's in this other world, right? And you see all these like humans and people running around, and you have Morpheus telling them, welcome to the Matrix, right? This is the Matrix. Look what's happening. So to put that into context, Morpheus was your conscious brain. Morpheus was conscious. He was making him aware of what was happening around the world before him. And then there's what you call the agent. Remember how the agent was just so powerful in the movie?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And he wants to bring you back to the Matrix. Well, here's the thing. The agent's your subconscious mind. It's the one dragging you back to where it is, where it thinks you are safe based on your model of success, your environment that you were raised in between the ages of 0 and 8, if you really want to go to 18, but 80% of it's done by the time you're 7 years old. And if you ever noticed how Morpheus talks about how you're fighting with it and you'll start seeing stuff. So your thoughts come in. And if you notice throughout the movie, now all of a sudden Kiana sees the punches.
Yep.
Now can react in a different way to respond to it. That's what metacognitive is. Now you're aware of the thoughts coming in because these thoughts were thoughts that you created from a young child. And now you see them as they're coming at you, and now they have no power because they're not going to trigger the emotions, your central nervous system, and you can show up and respond differently. That's what that movie was all about. It was about the subconscious mind and being aware of the world that's given around me. Most people don't understand that this world that was given around is part of our identity. It's like, here, this is your pile of shit. This is what you have to work with.
We live it every day.
Yeah. And by the way, go to school, to borrow money, to pay back, to save for your RSPs, to die off 40% of the money that you couldn't survive off in the first place. That's the pile of shit that we're served up. This is what the world wants to give us, right? They want employees. So there I was, and I was like, okay, so now I understand all this stuff. I want to create something different. What do I need to do, right? So, I mean, if anyone's ever read Think and Grow Rich, it talks about, once you figure out the secret, the world will change, right? But it doesn't actually tell you the secret. It talks about all the stories of all the people, but it doesn't talk about it. Whatever a man can conceive and believe, he can achieve, right? Everything in this world was created and started from the mind, someone's mind. So what makes it different between yourself and anybody else, right? Here's the thing. Most people that want to create something, first off, they use logic and how. So what is logic and how? Logic and how is based on past experiences. So when you take logic and how and you want to create something new in your life, it's going to go, all right, can we do this? Well, no, we have never done that before. And the last time we tried something new, it caused us pain. And our brain's two functions to keep us alive and keep us safe from pain, physical or mental. And by the way, your body knows no difference. It literally doesn't. It reacts the same way mentally or physically when you're in danger. FYI. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, so I need to get above and beyond this, because what I was doing is I was taking all my measurements, bringing into the future. And here's the thing. They talk about there's a thermostat or a gauge where there's your identity, and you crank it up and you get really, really, you all of a sudden you have success beyond or stuff happens that's never happened in your life before. And then they call it you self-sabotage. How many people hear the word self-sabotage? Everybody hears the self-sabotage. And all of a sudden you take the thermostat and you go right back to exactly where you were. I'll tell you why. It's not actually self-sabotage. That's impossible. It's called a self-fulfilling prophecy because it's your identity. It's who you think you are. You can't be anything outside of who you are. And soon as you accomplish something outside of who you think you are, it goes, hey, no, that's not who you are. You're here. Come back here. So you're actually fulfilling a prophecy of your own identity and who you think you are. And in reality, if you self-sabotage, you'd actually be doing the exact opposite. If you sabotaged your identity, you'd be somebody different.
Right. It'd be better for you.
Yes. That's what I mean. So the terminology actually doesn't make any sense when you put it into context.
I love it. That's the best reframe of that I've ever heard.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, so I want to create something. All these people, man, see, believe, achieve, logic will get you from A to B, imagination will get you. I'm seeing all these people that are like innovators of the world. And I'm like, what are they doing? And then I was like, okay, so what are they doing? So I do a little bit more reading, and all of a sudden I figure out that they're using the right side of the brain, the creative side, the side that when you're in the shower and you're all of a sudden Albert Einstein. I was like, oh, yeah, I've come up with the greatest ideas in there. When I wake up in the morning, I got all these great thoughts and stuff like that. And that's because you're in what they call theta vibrational level, the same state that you are when you were a young child and you were consuming so much of that information, right? You get creative. It's just a relaxation standpoint, right? And so I was like, okay, I'm going to give this a go. So I started closing my eyes and started thinking about all this stuff. And sure enough, there's this asshole on the other side of the shoulder saying, you can't do that. You can't do that. And it takes a little bit of practice, but eventually I ended up spitting out everything that I wanted in my life. And it made me feel really good. So I'm like, okay, repetition is the key, and we're multi-sensory. So what do I need to do? Okay, well, I need to read this every single day. and I need to have an emotional attachment, which I created that because when I was thinking about it, it was just amazing. How many times do you think when you're thinking, you get so emotionally, you're like, oh my God, that's amazing. I can do that. And then you like get out and all of a sudden the asshole goes, no, you can't do any of that stuff, dumb shit. Come back over to fucking reality. Right?
You're back to right where you were at.
Yeah, right back to where you were at. No. This isn't who you are, right? Remember, you're literally a model of the people, places, and the world around you when you were between 0 and 7, right? So I decided to write it down and I started seeing it. By the way, vision, 1/3 of your brain is actually designated to vision. So I started envisioning, and it's actually called theater of the mind. If you've ever read Maxwell Maltz, that's like where it came from. Mm-hmm. Bart Starr and Vince Lombardi, they used to carry this book around and they used to do it. Michael Jordan, his last Sports Illustrated magazine article, they asked him, so what was part of the reasons that you were so successful? He said, I played every game. I played every game at least twice. How do you play a game before it's there?
Right.
How did he do that?
In your mind.
Here's the thing. You know no difference between reality and imagination. Your brain knows no difference. And anybody who wants to fight me on that, go grab some virtual reality goggles, go sit on a roller coaster, or go into a scary area. I guarantee you, and I've watched it, and I've personally done it myself. I know grabbing those goggles that it's not real. You put it in my mind, it does not know it's real. The central nervous system sends off all the same feelings as if you were there.
And that's why people say dreams. I dreamed that and I thought it was so real. It's exactly a very similar thing.
So you can use this as a service mechanism. So Maxwell Maltz calls our subconscious mind a service mechanism. It serves, it knows no difference between good and bad. It serves you whatever it is that you want. So these guys used to envision playing the game, and because it's linked to your central nervous system, and here's some cool studies. Research Quarterly actually did this. They took 3 groups of people, and they said, listen, we're going to shoot free throws, and we're going to see how good you become in 20 days. And we're going to test you on the first day and the 20th day. And then the first group, they said 20 minutes a day, you're to practice free throw shots, and we're going to retest you on the 20th day and see how much better you got. The second group, they said, we're going to test you on the first and the 20th day, and you're not going to practice at all. The third group, they said, we're going to test you on the first and the 20th day, but you're going to practice in your mind for 20 minutes a day. And these were the results on the 20th day. The first group, they had a 24% increase. The second group, none. They didn't practice. The third group, who practiced in their brain, envisioned it, was 23%.
Wow.
How is that possible? Easy, because it sees it. 1/3 of our brain is linked to our visual. So when you can see it, whatever a man can conceive and believe and he can achieve, and when you have an emotional tie to it, which is tied to your reticular activating system, you can look it up. It's a little part of your subconscious mind that filters out everything that's not important. This is the difference between Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan became obsessed with playing basketball. He wanted to be the best in the world, and he wanted to beat you so bad. And anything outside of that, any of the haters, anybody that said anything to him, he filtered that out, and he was like, I'm going to do it anyway. So I started envisioning what I wanted out of my life. I read it over and over and over again, seeing it. And then I decided to put it into play affirmations. Affirmations, they talk about it. And I remember before I was like, affirmation, I'm just going to talk about like how great I'm going to be. Like, are you kidding me? It works. But here's the thing. There's a key to it. You have to believe it.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. You can't go and write down a whole bunch of affirmations and then keep saying them to yourself if you don't believe them. So here's the sauce. What you do is you write down 5 things that you actually believe about yourself. And there's something to be said about taking stuff out of your mind and putting it on paper. It works. Then you write a small essay about why all of those things you are. And then you record them and you listen to them every single day in your voice. And because you believe them, it changes your state. When your state changes, imagine waking up in a day in the morning and feeling like a fucking $1 million. You just said you were the most powerful person that's going to make a change in your life and your world, whatever it is that you created out of that. And you've just envisioned your goals, and not goals, your vision of what it is that you want out of life. Imagine you are like in the best state of your life ever. And here's what happens. And a lot of people go, okay, well, that's great. There's the be goals, and then there's the have goals, right? So everyone always goes have. I want to have. Well, now that I have this vision out there, the have is a result of becoming. You have to become the person that haves everything. So once you start showing up differently, once you become, and here's the thing, you have an emotional attached to it, so you actually start changing your behaviors because beliefs drive behaviors. Now I start behaving different. I start showing up different. I become a different person. Guess what ends up happening? All the haves come. You're a different person. One of the things that he says in the Maxwell Maltz book is start mimicking the person that you want to be. Watch them, see them, because you become them. Repetition. It's the secret sauce. Here's another thing. People need to understand, stop using the word goals. And I'll tell you why. Our whole subconscious, our whole being, it operates on language. So when you say something, our brain goes and it grabs a word and it ties an emotion to it. It has a meaning behind it. So as soon as you create a word and then you're not impeccable with your word around that word, it means non-committal. It means you're not going to do it. How many goals do you set in your life and say, I have a goal, I'm going to do this, and then you don't do it? Your subconscious mind now goes, well, goals mean, if we hit them, we hit them. If we don't, we don't.
Right.
Now, here's the thing. There are some people that have the word goal and it means 100% equivalent. There is life or death. I am hitting that goal no matter what. And that's great. I use the word vision because it's outside of goal, because in my life, I have made so many goals and I have not followed through with them. And here's the other thing. Your subconscious hates giving its word and not following through.
Oh.
Hates it. And I'll tell you why. When you give your word and you don't follow through, what happens?
And you don't follow through, what happens?
Yeah, when you give your word to something and you don't follow through, how does it make you feel?
Oh, disappointed, negative.
It makes you feel guilty.
Yeah, right.
And what's the rule of your brain? Keep you alive and keep you safe from pain. Pain, emotional pain. It hates it. It hates it because then you go into these feelings and it's there to protect you. So you know what it does? It starts assuming language or words that are non-committal. Hey, do you want to go do this? Yeah, let's try it. Try means now your subconscious goes, ha, we use the word try. If it doesn't follow through, it don't mean shit. Maybe, I wish. So then we run around life. Do you know how many people I talk to that use the word maybe, try, hope all the time? At least count it in your day. I work with students right now. They were like, oh my God, like brain explode, open up, go, this is it. Yes, it's doing everything in its power to keep you from pain. And when you don't stick to your word, it causes guilt. So it goes, oh, let's not use that word. So now everybody that's using this word goal, your subconscious goes, yeah, goals? No, that means try. Yeah, we're going to try this again. When was the last time you tried? You know, Yoda says it's either do or don't. Do or don't. Be impeccable with your word and do or don't. That's it. You can change your life in literally 66 days. By the way, just so everyone knows, it becomes permanent habit after 66 days, not 21, 66. 6 months, you don't even have to think about it the rest of your life. It's like me and exercise, right? So create a vision that you want in your life, create some affirmations. Health is important to you. Don't be that person that's smoking cigarettes and not, because there's a biology standpoint as well, right? There's biology. So the people that I work with, we figure out their goal. So what's their North Star? They have emotional attachment to it. What's their affirmations? What do they want to be? What do they see themselves to be? Get them in state. I get them going to exercise every single day. Because it gives you a huge momentum. I mean, imagine seeing yourself growing and changing and the dopamine spikes. There's biology here, guys. It's important. This is part of my regimen every single day. Start reading the books, start getting information. Stop watching TV.
Oh yeah, that's huge.
Do you understand? And stop watching sitcoms, stop watching all that stuff. It literally, the information that you consume into your brain, I don't care what anybody says, it alters your reality. That's what it does. It's running 24/7. I don't watch TV. If I do watch something, it's on Netflix and it's a documentary. Heal, great one, right? I watch information stuff. Make it important to be impeccable with your word, because I got to tell you, it's so important. People don't understand this. It is 100% important. The 4 agreements. Read it. Be impeccable with your word. It's one of them. Start consuming the information. Most sickness and disease in this world is actually created by stress. You want to live a long, healthy life? Start doing things that make you happy. You hear about all these people that say, go get a job that isn't a job. It's like on vacation every single day. That's what I fucking do.
Yeah, right.
I get to make an impact on other people's lives and make them aware of what's stopping them, because it's the same thing. We are all wired the same way. We are all programmed. You want to change that program? You want to become metacognitive? You want to make a change? You want to create anything you want in this fucking life? You can do it in the midst of 66 days. Do it every single day without missing it. I promise you, this works. This is your brain. Get your state. Find something that you want out of life. This is what all the top people in the world do. Show me the person's habits every single day, and I will tell you whether they're successful or not.
So what is it about the 66 days? I mean, we've all heard of the 21. What is it about the 66?
66 days gets beyond the 21 days, and it locks it in as permanent. Permanent. It's like you won't even. It's like part of your soul. It's like this is just like a thing that I'm just everything. One of the little hacks that I used to do that I've used, and I learned this from Jim Fortin. Not a lot of people know him, but he's big in making people change. Is if there's something that you are struggling with, like your own identity, you feel like you are good enough, but your back mind is not good enough, and you believe yourself that you are good enough, but your subconscious is telling you different. Well, here's the thing: go find where there's water. Every place in your water, and grab a stick-it note and say, "I'm good enough." And every time that you walk by that water, you say, "I'm good enough." And remember, the brain learns by repetition. And you look at it and you feel it, and you feel that emotion of "I'm good enough." Imagine seeing that 8, 9, 10 times a day that you see it. I guarantee you, after 3 weeks, you're going to see water and you're just going to automatically say, "I'm good enough." After 66 days, you literally believe it beyond belief. It becomes part of you. It's how your brain works. This is your brain. This is how it functions. You are now a mechanic of your brain. Once you become a mechanic of your brain, you have all the context in the world. So, and here's the thing. The worst thing, there's a good and a bad thing about this.
Okay.
The good thing is you're aware, right? You can change anything. The bad thing is if you're one of those people that waited till you're 65, 70 and you're a young person now, and you knew how to actually do this and then you didn't do it, do you know how much regret you're going to have?
Oh my gosh.
That would be a curse. Because the biggest thing that you could ever do, if you ever go into old age homes, Gary Vee talks about this all the time. Go into an old age home and talk to them. They talk about all the regrets. Gary Vee, one of his big thing is not to live in regret in anything. Live this fucking life. You have the power to do it. Just because somebody says that you can't do it, that's their own shit. You understand that it's their own inner fucking shit that they're literally portraying onto you.
Yep.
It's their own thing that they can't do it. I know this.
It has nothing to do with you.
It has nothing to do. It has nothing. Haters have nothing to do with you. It's how they perceive themselves that they're putting onto you. Do you think that I would ever, I remember at one point in my life, I said I was going to have a black Porsche 911. This is how powerful the reticular activating system is. And I envisioned having that for a long time. And I never put it together until later on in life when I was able to put this together. But there I was, I made my first $1 million and I was like, I'm going to go buy a black M3. I went down to the shop. I seen a black M3. And what do you think was sitting in the showroom?
Black M3.
No, a black Porsche 911 Turbo sitting in the room.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
And it was the thing, and it was the thing that I said when I was a young kid. What do you think? And I didn't put it into context. I went in there, and what do you think I did? I bought it.
Yep.
I bought it on the spot because it was an emotional tie to it from when I was a young child, right? I said I'd be a millionaire back when I was young. I didn't know how I was going to get there. I literally didn't know, but that's literally what drove part of my behaviors. I'm not good enough. So it literally was going out there to service it. It wanted it. It knew that it was going to filter out everything possible, going from 24,000 to 150,000 to 1.4 million, finding angel investor because I believed it to be a reality.
And you didn't have to logically figure it out. I mean, it just...
I had an emotional attachment to
right.
it. And it wasn't later in my life till I figured it out. And you'll find out that a lot of successful people operate the exact same way. Your subconscious mind will serve you whatever it is that you want, good or bad, because it knows no difference. It doesn't care. It just gives it to you. It's a service mechanism, guys. Use it. The change that I've seen in people is prolific. It's not about business. It's about figuring out what's upstairs, because I'm going to tell you right now, when you figure out what's upstairs, everything in your life changes. It becomes easy. And I put easy because now when adversity comes, you're like, fuck, whatever. On next. That's what it feels like. Whereas before, adversity would come in and you'd be like, oh, you'd be down and you'd hold yourself and you'd crumble and the world was falling apart. Now you take it and you see it as a challenge. So here's the thing. They've been able to prove this biologically, that people that take stress, because stress is a good thing.
Right.
It is a good thing. It's just how you perceive it. So if you take it as a negative thing, it's going to shorten your lifespan. It's going to cause disease. It's going to wreck your DNA. There's a lot of science behind it. But people that see it as a challenge, it comes like, oh, that's a challenge. Guess what? They succeed. Mm-hmm. This is what Michael Jordans are like. This is what Michael Phelps. Michael Phelps used to sit there and envision. Get that? He used to sit there at the starting block, smell the chlorine, envision himself swimming through the water and getting to the end. He's seen the race before he got there. Guys, this is a superpower. You can have anything you want in life, visualize it, create an emotional attachment to it, and do it every fucking day.
And even this goes to what you're talking about in the biological part, because you can look at a person that's stressed and you can see their body language. They're hunched over, or negative people. Like, their body language says it all. And then somebody who's positive stands upright. They got their shoulders back. I mean, this is what people don't understand, is how biological this is.
It's state. You can tell when. That's why you can. I can tell by the state that somebody's in and the answers that they do. You know, they talk about like lying. Do you know why the left and right rule works with the eyes? Right?
No.
I'll tell you why. Because when somebody's telling the truth, they look to the left, because that's where the left side of their brain is, where their memories are. So they go back and they find the content for it, and then go, "Hey, this is what it is." When it's never happened before, they think to the right side of their brain, so their eyes move to the right to go and create something.
Oh, wow.
Yes. You can tell people's state. You can see it. I can tell when somebody's actually really successful by the language that they use.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as someone says, maybe try, I literally grab it and go, he doesn't believe. His own identity doesn't believe it to be true. He's going to use whatever he can to not commit to something, because he doesn't want his subconscious mind to commit to anything, to feel shitty about it.
Yeah. The language is the pattern.
It is
part of the pattern.
The language is everything, because that's all your brain has context to. It grabs words and it puts a fucking emotional attachment to it. A word has a meaning. Oh, it means this. Oh yeah. I didn't stick to my word. A goal. Guess what? It doesn't mean anything. It literally means nothing unless you create a new meaning behind it and you stick to it and be impeccable with it.
And what I don't think there's enough clarity in the world of people understanding that language is not descriptive. It's generative. It generates things. You know, it's like the maybe. It's like, maybe that'll happen. Well, then that's actually what's going to happen, right?
So yeah, exactly. I'll give you guys another cool study that they did. This was just recent. Harvard University did it. And biologically, they found out, like, the chemicals that go on in your body when you get into a certain state. There was no difference between anxiety and excitement within your body. There was one difference when they actually took the action, was anxiety. Like, so for example, if you were like anxious in a forest, right? Okay. And then all of a sudden a tiger comes out, cortisol releases. That's the fight or flight response, where you become like super powerful. You can run as fast as you can, like everything goes down, right? So what they did is they took a bunch of people for this study to like the scariest place ever to do it for them, karaoke.
What?
To go in front of a bunch of people and
okay. Yeah.
Is pretty scary, right? Because you have the judgment of others. Mm-hmm. So what they did, and you want to know how powerful it is, and this was Harvard University that did this. They took them all and they said, listen, we're going to put you on stage here. And obviously in their brains, they're like, oh my God, I'm anxious. They said, listen, before you go out there, rather than saying you're anxious, you're going to say, I'm excited. Even say the word excited. You actually crack a smile. I'm excited. And what happened was it changed their state and it stopped the release of cortisol, because the body, it was acting the same way, whether it was anxious or excited. But when they said the trigger word, keep that in mind, of excited, the body went, oh, we're about to go have a good time. All right, let's do it. Yeah. That's how powerful language is.
creates a different state.
Totally changes a different state because your brain operates on language.
That is amazing. That is amazing. Well, listen, Geoff, I appreciate this conversation, the time we have together. This was phenomenal, and a lot to share here and a lot to think about. How can people find more info about you, find you in general? Please share that with our viewers.
I'm on Facebook. You can find me, Geoff A. Hughes. That's facebook.com/Geoff A. Hughes. I'm on Instagram. I am Geoff Hughes. It's with a G, Geoff, and then geoffhughes.com. You're not going to find a whole lot of stuff going on as of right now because I'm in the midst of writing a book. Book's done, just getting published, self-published. It's going to be an ebook on all the stuff that we talked about today to make you like really like, wow. And then I'm going to be building a workbook, and the workbook is to take everything that I talked about in the ebook and to put it into play and all the habits that it requires to change it. And here's the thing, you can't miss. Once you start on these habits, you cannot miss for the 66 days. You have to do it every single day to get there. And then literally you're riding, it's like driving a car. You don't think about touching the brake. You don't think about putting the blinker on. You don't think to turn left. You just turn left. It just automatically happens because that's how your brain operates. And there'll be lots more coming from me. I'm about to head to Aruba and shoot a bunch of content there. So you'll see lots about me. I'm going to be one of those guys that you never heard of before, but came out. And the great thing about it is I went through a lot of experiences, and my impact on this world is to take all the experiences that the shitty experiences in my life, and turn them around so that people don't have that learning curve like I did. That's how it's going to impact.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Geoff, and everybody. Even though there isn't going to be much there, please go follow Geoff. Plug in, keep yourself around, because I'm excited. I'm excited to follow Geoff and keep in contact, because what you guys are about to see is going to be amazing. And Geoff's got a lot to share and a lot to give back. And we thanks everybody for tuning in again to the On Purpose Growth podcast. I'm sure you did some growing. Listen to this multiple times if you need. There was so much content on there. You're probably going to have to listen to it a couple times, and we look forward to seeing you back on the next episode. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the On Purpose Growth podcast. Let us know what you thought in the comment section. For more from On Purpose Growth, go to onpurposegrowth.com. Subscribe here at BLTV for all of our content, including the daily Learn About Law podcast, Seize Your Business, Making Real Estate Fun, and Logical Logistics podcast, brought to you by O'Flaherty Law. Thanks for listening.